Well, it's kind of turned out to be a gloomy Sunday afternoon, so I'm going to make me a pot of coffee in the percolator. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So first off, what we got to do is put some water in here. So you take your basket out and all that, just set that aside for now. One thing I have learned about getting good percolator coffee is that the better water you use does make a difference. So I use the filtered pitcher that I have here rather than using tap water. And well water too, I've found makes great coffee as well. And also you don't want to fill this too full, as well as you have to at least put a certain amount of water in. You can't put too little water. Kind of a rule of thumb is this bottom hole that you'll see, you'll never want to go above that when you're filling it up. As far as a minimum amount of water, you want to have at least half the pot full, and those same standards apply to different styles of percolators as well. So then once I have however much water I want in there, I'm just going to go ahead and put it on the stove and get that started on high to start heating up our water. Now while that's heating up, we're going to take apart our basket here. We're going to start filling it up with coffee. Now this is just regular old Folgers, you know, it doesn't have to be too crazy fancy. What I do is I just fill it up to the top of this little spout here. And don't overthink this too much. Just dump coffee in there, fill it up, and then kind of shake it around to make it even in the basket there. And see, that's about where I have it there. And by the size of this measuring scoop, we probably put about 1.5 cups of coffee grinds in there. And remember, we got our water heating up now just to kind of give us a little head start. So now all we got to do is put our percolator together. Just stick that up to the spout like that. Put your lid on, and then just drop that whole operation into the percolator. Now we'll close that up, and we'll just let that sit while we get everything put away. What we're going to be watching and listening for here is steam to start coming out of the spout, as well as you'll hear the water kind of start rumbling as it starts to boil underneath there. And that's when we're going to lower the heat, and it's going to start perking or bubbling, as we'll see here in a second. And you guys can hear that rumbling as it's actually already started to perk. So I'm going to turn it down just below medium heat. And this is going to prevent it from boiling over, okay? Now, as for the question of how long do you let it perk, to me, there's not just one answer for that. We'll say average 10 minutes. I'd say it's more of a judgment of smell. You can kind of smell when it starts to smell like coffee. And once I notice that change in smell, I'll let it go maybe another couple minutes, and then I'll take it off the heat, which, as a matter of fact, is about now. So I'm going to turn that heat off and just let that cool down for a minute. You know, there's still water up in that basket. You want to make sure that all drains back down into the pot. And of course, it's very hot, so you'll want to let that cool down a little bit. Now, while we're waiting for this to cool down, a couple facts about percolators. So this concept of percolation and using continuous flow by heating water to come up through a tube and cycle through a system, that first system is traced back to 1819, and then eventually in 1889 it would be patented and modified by Hanson Goodrich to become a percolator like we know and we see in front of us today. A percolator was kind of one of the first modern mechanisms that was come up with to make coffee. You know, for years people had been making Cowboy Coffee, which is basically when you just put grounds straight into the water, boil it, and then trickle in a little cold water. So I've made coffee like that before. It's definitely, I think it tastes great. It's just a different way to make coffee. To me, it's fun to try out all these different ways to make coffee. There's different tastes. If you like coffee as much as me, if you drink as much coffee as I do, then it's just an enjoyable thing to kind of do. Also, something like a percolator is a great thing to take camping. As far as percolators go, there's electric percolators where you just plug in, which are automatic. So if you're like me and you forget that you have coffee on the stove sometimes, you know, might come in handy. This should be cooled down enough now, so I'm going to grab a cup and go ahead and pour us some. Smells good, looks good, and tastes good. And definitely some pretty strong stuff. As my buddy down in Georgia says, it's black enough to float a horseshoe. So again, guys, the main concern with using these is it boiling over, okay? And that's just from keeping your heat too high, not turning it down in time, or like in my case, forgetting it's on the stove, you know. So guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy your next cup of coffee and check back in with the channel. There will be more coming.